I'm Sean White, and today we're meditating on the psychology of Valentine's Day. Is it the most romantic day of the year? Or is it just a made-up corporate construct designed to boost sales of the flower, chocolate, and greeting card companies? Is it both? Is it neither? Your feelings about Valentine's Day may say a lot about you and the status of your relationship. So let's get started talking about the psychology of Valentine's Day. The history of Valentine's Day is so convoluted that it would take an entire video just to cover. So we won't be talking about that today, or why the traditional gifts of chocolates, flowers, teddy bears, or Valentine's Day cards are a thing. Instead, we're going to accept that this is all a thing and discuss how that plays out for different people. Now, this can be quite an expensive topic, so let's break down a few different scenarios and see how they play out on Valentine's Day. Now, we're going to start at the beginning with a brand new, relationship. And let's be honest, isn't the first year of a relationship kind of like Valentine's Day every day, right? Everything is new and fresh, and you want to be together all the time, and you talk all the time, and you buy each other gifts. But there can be a bit of pressure in wanting everything to be perfect, especially for a first Valentine's Day together. However, when you're just starting a relationship, quite often you don't have a good idea of what works best for you and for your partner, or what they like and what they don't like. And in a situation where you don't know what the best option is, falling back on norms is always a safe bet, right? We tend to do that a lot in most aspects of our life. Play it safe when you're unsure. So flowers, chocolates, dinner, none of this is terrible. So most likely you won't go wrong with them. So I think the standards are used a lot when you don't really know your partner that well, and when there's that pressure to make everything a perfect evening, so to speak. So you may find as your relationship develops and matures that there are things that you prefer over other things, or you may find that chocolate and roses are what you really like and you want them every year. You figure these things out as you go along. Now, if your relationship has developed into a good, healthy one with plenty of communication, and you show each other affection regularly and you go out on date nights, well, Valentine's Day may not mean as much for you at that point, right? You don't need a specific day to show your love for one another because you do it all the time. And congratulations on a good, healthy relationship. That can be hard. Now, you may still decide on the typical Valentine's Day things, or you may decide to do other things, or you may decide to ignore the holiday altogether. The nice thing is that there probably isn't any sort of high pressure or expectations. And that's one of the great things about being in a comfortable and healthy relationship. Now, let's say you do have a good, healthy relationship, but you don't really have time to express that love and affection to one another on a regular basis. Maybe you have kids and jobs and responsibilities that eat up the majority of your time, and you can't remember the last time you went on a date together alone. So here, Valentine's Day can be a great thing to present an opportunity to reconnect with one another. So sometimes we know what's right or what we should be doing, but we need to be prodded into the right direction. So while it may be a somewhat made-up holiday, it works great in this scenario to bring couples back to one another. Now, all of this is great, but what happens if you're not in a relationship or you're in an unhealthy relationship? So let's look at it from that perspective. Being in an unhealthy relationship is hard enough without additional outside pressures, right? When Valentine's Day rolls around, there may be expectations to go through the motions and do romantic things that you really have no desire to do whatsoever and really don't want to be a part of, right? And what happens when you do things that you don't want to do? Resentments build up, and it makes you even more unhappy. Now, this is the exact opposite of what Valentine's Day is supposed to be about, right? The last thing we want is to spend time, money, and energy on things that are going to make us even less happy than we currently are. On top of that, you may be forced to look at or be around a whole bunch of healthier relationships, all having a great time and being all lovey-dovey with one another. Right? This is only going to make you feel worse about your current situation. Now, perhaps you're not currently in a relationship at all. So what does Valentine's Day mean for you? Well, it would depend on how you feel about your relationship status. If you're completely okay with being single, then you might dismiss it away and not give it much thought. Now, if you aren't happy being single and would prefer to be in a relationship, then Valentine's Day might just be rubbing that in your face. Right? Feelings of loneliness and depression may come up, and you might find that your overall mental health isn't great, not only on the day, but also leading up to it as the marketing blitz goes into full force and you're constantly seeing decorations and Valentine's Day candy in the supermarkets and jewelry ads on TV. And it can be very hard to get away from. Now, either one of these two options, okay with being single or not okay with being single, may be even more amplified if you've just gone through a recent breakup, right? If you initiated the breakup, then perhaps you'll use Valentine's Day as a celebration of yourself. You know, you left a relationship you weren't happy with and you're feeling empowered. Now, if you didn't initiate the breakup, well, then not only is Valentine's Day rubbing it in your face, but there may also be a lot of animosity as well. You know, angry, lonely, and depressed is a horrible combination and runs the risk of bad decisions being made. And lastly, let's look at this from the perspective of a widower, right? If you've lost your partner, Valentine's Day may add an extra layer on top of the mourning and grieving you may be going through. Once again, animosity may come up, especially if you're being bombarded with advertisements, movies, and social media posts of happy couples, right? Why do they get to be happy when you've lost the love of your life? It can seem even more unfair than it may already feel. I'm sure there are probably some additional relationship nuances that I didn't cover here. But at the end of the day, this holiday should be celebrated or not celebrated, however you and your partner want to, right? My wife and I rarely, if ever, go out on Valentine's Day because it's always so busy and crowded everywhere, and we're not into that. You know, we'd rather go out on an off night instead when we know we'll most likely have a more enjoyable time. It's important that both parties are on the same page with this, right? Make sure that the other's feelings are taken into consideration and expectations are being met. If one person is expecting to be swept off their feet and showered with gifts while the other refuses to give in to social norms and corporate pressure, well, then you're just going to have problems, right? So communicate your expectations early and often so your partner knows what is important to you, right? The last thing you want to do is any damage to your relationship because you weren't on the same page with things. Figure out what works best for you and do that, right? Like, I can remember being horrified by the line of people waiting to get into a hometown buffet on Valentine's Day because I felt like it was so subpar and cheap. But as I've gotten older, I realized that you should do what you like and not worry about what others think, right? At the end of the day, if you're going to celebrate your love for each other, then it should be done in a way that makes you both happy, even if that is a terrible buffet restaurant. Now, if Valentine's Day is not a happy day for you, then try to have a plan to deal with it in advance, right? Plan to get together with friends, practice some self-care, stay in, watch a movie. Don't put yourself in a scenario that isn't great for your mental health. Try to avoid anything that's going to be a trigger and put you in a worse mood. When I was younger, a bunch of us who were all single would get together at the bar that we hung out with. And it didn't make us feel any better about being single per se, but it did put a support system in place for all of us, and we could be out without being seen as the lonely single person, by themselves in a bar on Valentine's Day, right? And I will say this, though. Relationship issues, loneliness, and depression are all major causes for suicide attempts, right? Valentine's Day can be hard on a lot of people for all the reasons that we just discussed. If you or a loved one are experiencing suicidal thoughts around this time of year, then get in touch with the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in the United States or the Suicide Prevention Hotline for whichever country you are currently living in. Let's make sure we're taking care of our physical and mental health as best as we can. I hope this has given you some perspective on Valentine's Day and given you something to think about. If you like this video, then click the like button and share it with your friends. That really helps out with getting these videos recommended to more people and spreading our message. If you want to hear more of what I got to say, then subscribe, turn on notifications, and find out when new videos are coming out. And leave me some comments down below. What are your thoughts on Valentine's Day? Do you have any traditions that you like to do every year? Do you think this is all just a bunch of BS? Let me know. And until we speak again, be well, be safe, and be kind, everybody.